In a freezing midnight, miles away from civilization, a car is fast moving on a lonely highway, leaving behind Antwerp and heading towards Brussels. On board are 5 people carrying diamonds worth millions of dollars. The men are still under the influence of what they have just done. They are quiet, but they are focused on their next move. The diamonds they carry are stolen from the most secure vault of the world. And the mastermind of the heist is Leonardo Notarbartolo, sitting behind the wheel. A man once said, "The distance between insanity and genius is measured only by success." The 5 men would have been rightly called insane if anyone ever knew what they had planned to do, but the world will no doubt know them as geniuses after what they have done. And this is because no sane person would dare to breach the multi-layered, high-tech security system that was in place to guard the vault. The vault was built 2 stories down the ground floor of Diamond Center. The door leading to the vault had a wheel lock with 100 million possible combinations. In order to further intensify the defense mechanism, the lock was paired with a foot-long physical key that was impossible to be copied. The door itself was made of 3-foot dense steel that was insensitive even to a high-tech drilling machine. And even if attempted, the drilling would be detected by the seismic sensors in a split second. Moreover, if the door was opened, the alarm would go off because opening the door would disturb the magnetic field created by 2 plates, one on the door and the other one on the adjacent wall. Inside the vault was in place an infrared detector that would set off the alarm if it ever detected slightest rise in the surrounding temperature caused by human presence. The defense was further tightened by Doppler radar installed to catch the minutest movement inside the vault. Besides, there were light detectors in place that would force a thief to work in the pitch dark. The antechamber was likewise equipped with infrared sensor, light detectors, and surveillance cameras all over. And to top it all, there was a highly trained private security force called Diamond Force, ever alert to glide down with state-of-the-art weapons on the first alarm. Beside the impregnable security, the Diamond Center was situated in the midst of a cluster of buildings. How on earth could Notarbartolo be bent on passing through all these obstacles? What motivated him to go for a gamble that could cause him his life? He was born in the year 1952 in Palermo, Sicily. Seeing his resume, one could easily conclude that he was born with unique stealing instincts. At the age of 6, he deprived a milkman of his money and milk while he was having a siesta. His mother beat him hard, but all to no effect. He felt a great thrill in theft and knew the experience had given a meaning to his life. He continued stealing and sharpened his skill as the time passed by. Notarbartolo started car lifting in his 20s. He learnt lockpicking and explored new insights in the art of theft. He developed himself to be a very soft-spoken person and learned to appear a genial, harmless, easygoing man. He then started observing people's behavior and habits. By and by, his confidence rose to the sky, and eventually he diverted his attention to gems and jewelry. He would observe jewelry dealers and salesmen in Italy for months, learning their ways and demeanors. And once he was sure he could predict their moves accurately, he robbed many of them in ways the victims had never imagined. He moved to Antwerp Diamond District, Belgium, the world's epicenter for diamond trade. The district claims 80% of the world's diamond reserves. He started dealing in diamonds and became a businessman. It was an irony when one certain day he came to know that his own shop was robbed. He found it difficult to come to terms with his situation and resolved to earn back what he had lost, and that could be what dared him to heist the diamond vault. This is the year 2002. Fall is at the doorstep. Notarbartolo is seated in a hotel. His gaze is fixed at the Diamond Center that's straight across the road. His mind is racing through the past events. A thief of his stature, he has taken great pains and spent a lifetime maturing his skill to the ultimate level, and now every faculty of his mind is to be tested. He has to prove to himself that his magic can outsmart the deepest and tightest security a man could ever devise. He has already drawn a sketch of his play. He never assumes. He never guesses. His plans count on perfect information. First of all, he registers a company that goes under the name De Motos Precisor, which has never been operational but only exists in papers, but only meant to get access to the Diamond Center. A few days later, he shows up at the Diamond Center. He pretends to be a gem dealer and asks for the manager of the facility. The manager happens to be a lady. Skilled in the art of speech, he takes a little time to win her confidence with his charming talk and manages to rent an office in the Diamond Center. Being a paying tenant of the facility, he is awarded residence ID. He is also entitled to rent a security box in the vault and wastes no time to rent one. He designs a tiny digital camera capable of shooting 100 high-resolution images and fixes it in a pen, which he always keeps in his breast pocket. Then he starts visiting the vault frequently to check his safe deposit box and shoots as many photos of as many dimensions as possible. He develops great terms with the officials and security personnel. The staff grows so accustomed to his being around that they grow less and less worried about him. He has already set grounds for his play. What next? He knows that he cannot conduct the heist by himself, so he starts a hunt for accomplices. Being an outlaw for all his life, he knows the cream of his tribe. He sets about a visit to Turin, Italy. First, he approaches Ferdinando Finotto, known as Monster, because of his massive structure and strength. Monster is an expert electrician, mechanic, and skill lockpicker. Next, he hunts down Elio Donorio with the nickname Genius. He is a specialist in alarm systems, and he is also wanted by the police for his links to a number of robberies. The next teammate is called King of the Keys, whose real name has never been known to anyone, but his support is instrumental in passing by the vault's internal locking mechanism. He is rightly thought of as the best key forger in the world. And finally, Notarbartolo invites his childhood friend, Pietro Tavano, who is called Speedy. Speedy is known to be a paranoid who eventually yields to pressure situations and gets chaotic. The rest of the group disagrees with his getting aboard, but Notarbartolo insists and vouches for his utility. The team agrees on the authority of Notarbartolo. However, Speedy's selection later proves to be a fatal flaw for Notarbartolo. The group is to be called the School of Turin afterwards. The 5 men fly to Antwerp and start a drill that will shock the world in the times to come. Notarbartolo hires a warehouse in a remote area and places his team over there. Each member of the crew individually visits the vicinity of Diamond Center in disguise. Notarbartolo, having access to the vault, continues his survey. He knows that getting the precise code of the wheel lock is imperative. One day he makes a maneuver and places a tiny camouflage camera in the antechamber that is directed at the lock of the vault's door. Its data is transferred to a sensor that he places in a watertight chamber hidden inside a fire extinguisher. The data is then relentlessly relayed to the group. The group closely watches every footage to determine the code. The group knows the heist must be conducted with perfection, so they built an exact replica of the vault and the antechamber from the same footage. They practice every move to perfection for 5 months. Some people are of the view that the group had the assistance of an insider, but the view remains a view, and to date it has not been confirmed with evidence. This is February of the year 2003. The team is ready. The time has come to let the rubber hit the road. Notarbartolo knows that Jew residents are not around on Saturdays, so he picks Saturday to keep his play most low-key. He makes a final visit to the vault on the 14th of February, that is 1 day before the heist of the century. His demeanor is surprisingly casual. The security is least bothered about his presence, and once again he shows his mastery and soaks the heat sensor with aerosol spray without raising any suspicion of the security. Simple but genius. The film of oily liquid will block the sensor's ability to detect any rise in temperature. The alarm connected to the heat sensor is no more a threat, but nobody knows for how long the film can effectively block the heat sensor. Notarbartolo treats the heat sensor inside the vault in the same way. This move paves the way for Monster to install the heat sensor bypass later in their heist. It is the 15th of February. The climax of the play is a little away. The theater curtains are about to go up. It is late in the night. The exterior gates are protected from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The premises are abandoned at the mercy of regular district police, which has gone a little complacent because the security is considered impenetrable. A rented Peugeot 307 is approaching the Diamond Center. The man behind the wheel is Leonardo Notarbartolo. His face is grim but shows no sign of worry. He drops the 4 men at the back of an empty office building that's next to Diamond Center. Notarbartolo himself waited in a nearby alley. The 4 men enter the empty building, cross a corridor, and come out to the lawn of the building. The lawn is separated from the Diamond Center's garden by a fence. The group is fully aware of a thermal sensor which is fully functional and set in the garden of the complex. If they enter the garden, the sensor will set the alarm off and they will see everything they worked for evaporate just before their eyes. Genius has got a remedy. Genius gently navigates his way towards the sensor, holding a polyester shield in front of him. He has purposely brought polyester for its ability to repel infrared rays. The group grows very still as he gets closer to the sensor. Genius rather creeps with his feet on the ground and eventually gets to the position where he completely blocks the heat sensor. Next, he disables the alarm on the balcony with great agility. With the alarm system neutralized, the group is free to make their next move. The group is now standing on the ground floor and the security, absolutely ignorant of the intruders, is just 1 floor above them. The 4 men now move down to the antechamber. The atmosphere has grown very tense, but the group stays calm and collected, as they have already been sizzled in like situations. They proceed silently. The thermal sensor in the antechamber had already been disabled by Notarbartolo the previous day, but there are light sensors in place, since they have memorized every inch of the place through practice in the replica. Even in the dark, they managed to put thick black bags on the light sensors. The light sensor goes blind. Another threat has been moved out of the way. Now they can continue their operation in light. Next, they put duct tape on the thermal sensor that was disabled the previous day to further secure it. Now there is a 3-foot dense steel door between them and the vault. They already know that the two plates creating a magnetic field will trigger the alarm even if they succeed in opening the door. So first, they have to curb this threat that can annihilate their whole scheme. Genius has already devised a clever way to deal with it. He has fashioned an aluminum bar with double tape on one side. The bar is broad enough to cover the two magnetic plates. He places it on the plates with tapes fixed on the plates, and then he unscrews the bolts of the plates while keeping the magnetic field intact. He removes the plates from the door along the bar and without altering their natural position. And now they proceed to the next stage. Now they have to contend with door locks. They have the combination, which they figured out from the footage relayed by the hidden camera. A duplicate physical key has also been fabricated by King of Keys from the same footage. They are about unlocking the door, but King of Keys stops short in the progress. He has the gut feeling that the original key is in the adjacent utility room because he has noticed in the footage that every time they unlock the door, the security personnel first enters that room. They decide to check the utility room first. King proves to be right, and now they have the original key. They punch the code, turn the key, and the door is unlocked. Before opening the door, Genius makes a curt nod to Monster, and he discreetly switches off the lights in the antechamber so as not to disturb the light sensor inside the vault. Once again, they are standing in pitch dark. There is one more physical obstacle between them and the vault, a metal grate. King of the Keys applies his skills and picks the lock in no time. The door slides open, and Monster picks a huge battery from the utility room and puts it in place to keep the metal grate from closing again. Now, if they dart into the vault, their whole scheme will fall apart because there are heat sensors, light detectors, and Doppler radars. Now Monster, a skilled electrician and tall, strong man, comes to play his role. He stands just in front of the vault's door for a few minutes, takes deep breaths in a slow motion, calms down his heartbeat, a drill that he has exercised unlimited times in the replica, and enters the vault in the most sluggish way, extremely careful not to trigger any of the alarms. The heat detector that Notarbartolo has sprayed is still not fully operational, but the team knows that it cannot be restrained for long. Tension grips the rest of the team as it's the most decisive moment of the whole orchestra. Monster takes 11 steps and stops at the perfect spot. He reaches out to the roof and pushes back the panel. The alarm wires are now exposed. He feels the wires with his hands and identifies the wire carrying the electronic signals in and those carrying them out of the vault. Every incoming signal expects an outgoing signal. If a sensor is tripped, the circuit will break and the incoming signal will not get the outgoing signal, and that will set the alarm off. Monster uses his knife to remove the plastic coating from the wires. A slightest slip of the knife can end their game in no time. Monster is working with his hands, reaching the roof. His position throws tremendous pressure on his shoulders, and the heat of the moment causes him to sweat. The heat sensor, under the influence of oily mist, is still ignoring Monster, but no one knows the limit of its mercy. Once the copper wires appear, Monster fixes a piece of already cut copper wire between the wires carrying the incoming and the outgoing signals, and successfully redirects the incoming signal out of the vault. With the electronic signal not reaching the sensors, the alarm system is totally disabled. Monster has done it. The vault is secured, and the team is inside the vault. Once inside, they secure the heat sensor with styrofoam boxes and put duct tape on light detectors. Even with alarms disabled and light sensors covered, they prefer to work in darkness. Having perfected their moves in the replica, they find it quite easy to work without light. The success is a few moments away, but the danger of getting caught is still looming over their heads. The team is under mixed emotions, but continues with professional excellence. The King of the Keys has brought a hand-driven drill. They occasionally light their torches to apply the drill at the right spot on the boxes. The boxes crack open one by one, and the team loads their duffel bags with the loot. The heist goes on, and the team is now in the vault for 6 hours. Once their bags are crammed, they leave the vault. It is around 5:30 a.m. Out of the building, Speedy calls Notarbartolo. "Get ready, we are coming." Notarbartolo is waiting desperately outside the Diamond Center. As soon as he sees them approach the car, he starts the engine. They throw the bags in the boot, hoop in the car, and leave the spot. The heist is complete without a shred of evidence left behind at the crime scene. Their ecstasies are beyond imagination. With the discovery of the heist, the police storm the Diamond Center and start scouring the place for evidence that could lead them to the criminals, but they could not find any. The security and residents are left baffled. Now on their way to Brussels, they are planning to dispose of the incriminating evidence. At this precise moment, Speedy gets into a full-blown panic. He is convinced that the police are a few minutes away from them. The team assures him that they are safe, but he is overwhelmed with anxiety. They are now into a region called Vilvoorde. While Notarbartolo is busy burning the evidence, Speedy throws a garbage bag full of evidence in a hurry and without burning it. Running out the time, the group takes chances and leaves the spot thinking it would never be found as the land appears inhospitable. But they have made a fatal mistake. The bag is left on land that belongs to a local grocer named August Van Champ, who is obsessed with keeping a watch on his property. And if there is any alien object, no matter how small, he will call the police for investigation. When he finds the garbage bag, he immediately calls the police. The police are at first reluctant to respond because they know Van Champ. But as soon as he informs them that there's something that glitters in the bag, the police rush to the spot. They take evidence in custody and examine its contents thoroughly. The evidence leads the police straight to Notarbartolo. The detectives find wine bottles, empty yogurt containers, and half-eaten sandwiches. All of these help them find the DNA of their users. They also find an ID bearing the name of Leonardo, the genius, a name they later find to be an Italian criminal who has been engaged in car lifting and drugs. Besides, they also find shredded documents, when reassembled, disclose the name of a company called De Motos Precisoi. When they extend the inquiry, it is found that the business is owned by none other than Leonardo Notarbartolo. And they come to know that the business has never been operational, but it was only meant to get access to Diamond Center. There was a number of pieces of evidence against Notarbartolo. When the police retrieved records from the surveillance cameras, they found that the frequency of his visit to the vault was abnormal and indicated fraudulent motives. Besides, his safe deposit box was one of the few which were not looted. Inside his apartment, the police found the duct tape that matched with fragments of the ones left in the vault. They also found a SIM card whose call records indicated it had been in the vicinity of the Diamond Center on the night of the heist. The evidence against Notarbartolo at this point was overwhelming. Despite this, he did not divulge any information during the 8 hours of interrogation. In March of 2005, he was arrested and sentenced to prison for a period of 10 years. Leonardo was later apprehended and sentenced to a prison of 5 years. Ferdinando Finotto had a girlfriend who lived in the French Riviera, the property from which $100 bills were found that were traced back to the vault. He was arrested in Italy in 2007 and sentenced to prison for a period of 5 years. Speedy was also sentenced to 5 years in prison. King of Keys was the only member of the School of Turin who was never apprehended, and his whereabouts is a mystery till this day. As of now, all of them have already served their terms in the prison and are living as free men across the world. They are no longer the focus of police scrutiny, but their actions are still observed from time to time. Reports say that none of them is living a luxury life, and there is no sign of their benefiting from the proceeds of the stolen diamonds. But the fact remains that the diamonds taken from the vault have never been discovered. In the year 2009, Notarbartolo sat for an in-depth interview. During this interview, he appeared very candid and willingly talked about every fact concerning the heist. He freely affirmed his involvement as the architect of the whole affair, but the most intriguing part of the interview arrived when he spoke about a new character of the heist that had not been known then. He disclosed that he had been approached by a Jewish diamond merchant who instigated him for the heist and funded the whole operation on the terms that he would take a third of the loot and the remaining would be divided among the group. Notarbartolo further claimed that the job was an attempt to defraud the insurance companies by making them compensate for the theft. He also claimed that the total worth of the stolen goods was close to $20 million and not $100 million that was being tossed around in different circles. The truth of his claims could neither be declined nor approved with empirical evidence. But there's one fact that sheds doubts on his story. The vault was not insured at the time of theft. However, the possibility of individual contents insured at the owner's discretion could not be denied. The claims of Notarbartolo, therefore, still hold credibility about the true nature of the heist. Leave aside its main objective, the heist has left its mark in the history of crimes, a blend of ingenuity, courage, and criminology that has no parallel.